Fantasy Freaks and Geeks. What's going on? James Coe here with you. It is a Wednesday, and you know what? The waiver wire has run, but you're looking at your team right now, 6 teams on a bye, which I said should be made illegal, okay? Morally reprehensible by the schedule makers. I'm not going to go into that deep dive again. Anyways, you still need some help. So I really dug into some of these numbers. I really dug into some of these depth charts. I did some tape study on some guys that I'm going to unleash right now. I've got running backs, I've got quarterbacks, and I've got wide receivers, and I've got a lot of tight ends actually that could help you out here. But I want to start at the running back position. Again, if you missed yesterday's episode, I talked about Patrick Taylor, right, taking on the Chicago Bears. Isaac Guerendo's obviously the next man up, but let's not forget that Guerendo does have a long history of hamstring injuries going back all the way throughout his collegiate career. That's the same injury, and I talked about this yesterday. It's the same injury that kept him out of most of training camp as well. All right, now Patrick Taylor, he's not a fantastic athlete, but he's plenty fast enough. He's definitely big, right? This is not he's not some small scat back, right? Like, this is not that guy. No. Taylor is 6'2", 217 pounds. He ran a 4.57. And this was back in 2020 at the Combine. Now, the 4.57, again, that's not going to turn any heads, but at 217 pounds, again, that's not bad. That's not bad. It's not the fastest time in the world, but shoot, man, I tell you what, given his size, given his experience with outside zone as well, shoot, I don't hate picking up Patrick Taylor and just kind of sort of reading what the practice report tea leaves tell us. Maybe he gets on the football field in a 40% capacity. That would be ideal. Right? Again, this is if you missed out on Isaac Guerendo. If you've got Isaac Guerendo, you're like, no, that's not ideal. That's not ideal at all. We need Isaac Guerendo to play 90% of the snaps. All right, I get you. I'm just saying, if you are absolutely desperate and you picked up Patrick Taylor, the matchup against Chicago, by the way, not bad. It's not bad at all. If he finds his way onto the football field, I kind of sort of like this matchup because the Bears have really struggled to stop the run. 4.89 yards per carry allowed to opposing running backs. That ranks as the 5th worst in the NFL. Okay, if we're going to talk running backs, it's time now to play Who the Fuck? And let's talk about my dude in Las Vegas, a fella, one of the best names in football, Sincere McCormick. I love this man's spices, but I wasn't sure about him as a football player. Trust me, if you've never heard of Sincere McCormick, you are not alone. I've never heard of Sincere McCormick. So, of course, I had to do a deep dive into this dude. I'm the sleeper king. You pay me to know who these guys are and give you a decent scouting report and let you know whether or not they're fantasy relevant. And let me tell you something. Second-year player out of UT San Antonio. I was not expecting much, right? A quick Google search of Sincere McCormick, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this is interesting. 5'8", 205 pounds. But he ran a ridiculously slow 4.640 with a super subpar 33.5-inch vertical. I don't know how at that size he is in the NFL. That size and speed combination is, it's got to be in the bottom 5% of athletic measurables. Has to be. I mean, we're talking about a guy who is below 210 pounds and has a 40 in the 4.6s, and also a vertical that's sub 35 inches. That's crazy to me. It is insanely low measurables, insanely low. Okay. Now, that being said, if you're saying, well, James, dude, if you've seen him play, he can play a little. Yes, he can play a little bit for sure. Absolutely. He's averaging over 5 yards a carry right now. I mean, obviously it's a very small sample size, but shoot, there's no other Raiders running back that's doing that. Right. And again, so I go back to his UT San Antonio tape. Right. And I'm thinking, all right, what am I going to see here? you don't need to turn on more than just a couple plays here before you get your eyebrows raised and before you get your interest piqued here on Sincere McCormick. He plays a lot stronger than his 205-pound frame. Way stronger. Way stronger. And he uses a variety of last-minute spin moves and stiff arms to pick up extra yardage. We've seen this at the pro level too. You know how for receivers they talk about late hands, and basically they don't throw their hands up as the ball is coming to them. They shoot their hands up at the very last second, so to kind of sort of fool the defender. That is kind of sort of what McCormick does, but at the tackle point. At the tackle point, man, he uses a variety of moves to really pick up extra yardage. I'm really impressed with his ability to kind of sort of not necessarily break tackles, but let me just put it to you this way. He's extremely slippery at the tackle point. I will say that. So yeah, does he lack speed? 100%. 100%. He actually does have a few more breakaway runs than I was anticipating. But he does lack top end speed. And again, this is against lesser competition. So I understand. But he has shown some of that, elusiveness at the pro level as well. I think he's got really good vision, and I really like his ability to change direction to find these cutback lanes. That's really where I think he is a special player, or can be a special player anyways. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but honestly, when I watch him play, he reminds me a lot of breakout rookie running back star Bucky Irving. Because remember, Bucky Irving coming out of Oregon, he also lacked a lot of measurables as well. Now, he played for a much higher profile program in Oregon, but the measurables just weren't there. That's why he went later in the draft to the point where Tampa Bay took him. Right? So lacks measurables, but can play. Kind of sort of like Sincere McCormick, to be honest with you. And it's that, and again, even for Bucky Irving, slippery at the tackle point, right? Cutback ability, good vision. These are the ways that Bucky Irving is winning. He's not winning by just straight out athleting you. Now, given his traits, we're talking about Sincere McCormick now. He's much better in gap scheme than he is an outside zone runner, but that's just my opinion, because full transparency, I've turned on 3 games of Sincere McCormick. Kind of hard to find UT San Antonio tape, I'm not going to lie to you. But it didn't seem as if they ran many outside zone plays at UTSA. Okay, for the Roadrunners there. So, which is ironic because they're the Roadrunners. Not a lot of outside zone run plays, at least from what I saw. They had some outside concepts, but for the most part, it's all gap scheme, between the tackles type stuff. But again, given his traits, shoot, man, I think he's a much better fit there, which I only bring that up because in Las Vegas, with the coordinator change, it seems as if they're also going away from the outside run concepts and really focusing a lot more on between the tackles type of stuff. And I think that will fit in perfectly with Sincere McCormick. Now, that being said, what's his role on this Las Vegas team? Of that, I am not sure, right? Alexander Madison, is he going to return? And if he returns, have they seen enough from Sincere McCormick to say, hey, man, let's just see what we got in the young players? I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I would also say, what's up with Zamir White? If Zamir White and Alexander Madison are back and they're going to use Amir Abdullah, we could be in a little bit of trouble here. So again, the practice reports I think are going to be very key, not for Sincere McCormick, but for Alexander Madison and Zamir White. Regardless, I like Amir Abdullah, right? You couldn't ask for a better paper matchup for Amir Abdullah. Right, the Bucs have allowed the second most receptions and the second most receiving yards to running backs this year. That obviously pairs very well, dare say pairs perfectly with Amir Abdullah's pass catching skill set. And considering that the Raiders should be trailing by quite a bit in this game, do not be surprised if they lean on AA out of the backfield. In PPR formats, I really like Amir Abdullah to outkick expectations there. Obviously, a touchdown is going to be key for him to kind of sort of break into that next level. But I do think that in a PPR format, full point PPR, I think you're getting a relatively safe floor. As a matter of fact, if it's just Alexander Madison and Amir Abdullah, I wouldn't be scared to say a floor of 8 points in PPR could be expected from Amir. And again, let's say he cracks into the end zone. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking 14, 15, 16 points. That's not bad at all. Okay. Going back to Sincere McCormick very quickly. Again, didn't have a ton of targets in the games that I sampled there. Again, I just saw 3 games here, but he looked very comfortable. Again, a lot like Bucky Irving. I don't think Bucky Irving got a ton of targets either, but he looked very comfortable with the ball in the air coming his way. So take that for what you will. Man, let me just say this, man. I'm just so intrigued by Sincere McCormick because honestly, in Las Vegas, who cares about Alexander Mattison? I don't want to say who cares about Zamir White because that would just be a slap in the face to myself. Because I like Zamir White too. Oh, man. And that's the really unfortunate part too, man. I'm going down a tangent here, but I can't because of my podcast, so who cares? But the really unfortunate part is that Zamir White is dealing with an injury. This new revamped running attack that they've got here, where they're focusing a lot more on gap scheme, man-to-man type of stuff between the tackles. I just feel like that just works to Zamir White's, favor a lot more, man. So I don't know. That's the kind of unfortunate part. But while we're here, again, I'm just saying, Sincere McCormick, he can play. This guy can play. And I wonder if the Raiders will say, regardless of what Alexander Mattison's availability is, maybe they're in discovery mode because this team is going nowhere. Maybe they want to see what they've got in the building. Sincere McCormick would certainly check that box for me. Okay, so if you're interested, I don't mind putting McCormick on the end of my bench. Okay, that being said, if you're looking for, you got to get some players going this week. Jerome Ford against Pittsburgh is an interesting one for me. Ford surprisingly played 65% of the snaps versus 35% of the snaps for Nick Chubb on Monday night. That being said, okay, well, let me just break it down fully, okay? So Ford played 65%, Nick Chubb 35% of the snaps. They both had the same number of carries with 9, but Ford, he ended up running 35 routes versus Nick Chubb's 8 routes. Now, you might be surprised because that obviously did not play out in the box score because Chubb did catch a touchdown, right? But that 35-8 route run discrepancy, that's huge. That is massive. That's a monster difference right there. It could be argued that this game was a surprising shootout, so maybe this is more of a one-off utilization. Against the Pittsburgh Steelers, you would imagine this game is a lot, tighter. It feels much more like a old school black and blue Cleveland, Pittsburgh, AFC North in cold weather type of game. But that being said, Jameis Kajamis here, and he could absolutely erupt. So I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious to see. But again, if you're desperate, 6 teams on a bye, maybe you don't like your RB2. If Jerome Ford is available, and he is available in approximately 60% of leagues, again, I don't hate it. Right there. Another player that I think you could maybe potentially stick into your RB2 spot. How about Cam Akers taking on Atlanta? Aaron Jones played 51% of the snaps. Cam Akers, 31%. Now, we'd like that number to be closer to 40%, but he's on his way. Why? Because fumbling issues sent Akers to the bench for a little bit. Now, Aaron Jones did end up coming back and catching a game-winning touchdown, but I'm just saying, clearly this is on the mind of both Aaron Jones and the coaching staff, the fumbling issues here. Do they start to work in Cam Akers just a little bit more? We'll find out. Hey, listen, the matchup, it's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. Falcons very middle of the road against opposing running backs from a fantasy perspective, but they have allowed the 3rd most receptions to running backs. This could be a path for Cam Akers to surprise this week. Cooper Rush, if we're transitioning to quarterback here, if you're looking for a a streamable quarterback. Cooper Rush against Cincinnati, I talked about in yesterday's episode. As far as streamer goes, not bad at all. Right, over his last 3 games, Cooper Rush has a 350-yard game against a solid Houston defense and a 247-yard, 2-touchdown performance against Washington. Now, this week he's taken on Cincinnati. This defense, I don't know if they've thrown up the white flag or not. It seems like they have. They've given up 24-plus fantasy points to 4 of their last 5 quarterbacks that they have faced. That is unreal production that they are giving up to opposing quarterbacks. I'm going to go back to Las Vegas here as we talk about a wide receiver that I really like, and that is Trey Tucker taking on Tampa Bay. Tucker coming off of back-to-back productive games here. And the major point for me is, well, it's twofold. One, the Bucs have just been getting, destroyed by outside wide receivers all year long, right? They've allowed the second most receptions and the third most touchdowns to outside wide receivers. Trey Tucker primarily plays about 75 to 80% of his snaps on the outside. Remember, DJ Turner, now DJ Turner's a slot guy, but DJ Turner was put on IR. He'd been seeing significant action for the Raiders in recent weeks. He'd been, he's been working inside, outside, primarily as an inside slot player. But he's also been earning some targets as well. So with DJ Turner on IR, it does open up even more target share potentially here for Trey Tucker. He's an explosive athlete. This guy can fly. So again, he only needs to break one. And Tampa Bay's been giving up a lot of big plays. I don't hate Trey Tucker. Okay, if you're looking for 2 tight ends here, these guys are going to be widely available. Juwan Johnson, who I think was less than 2% rostered the last time I checked on Tuesday night before waivers have run. We know that Taysom Hill unfortunately suffered an ACL tear. It obviously opens the door for Juwan Johnson to play more snaps and play a bigger role. Plus, with no Olave here in Week 14 as well. Now no Taysom. Target share wide open. I think Juwan Johnson, to me, profiles as their clear-cut pass-catching option at the tight end position. I wouldn't be surprised to see him see 6 to 7 targets in this upcoming game against the Giants, who, oh, by the way, not a great real-life defense. We're going to stay in that game. I am so intrigued. If you guys have been a fan of mine for any length of time, you know that I really am just intrigued by Daniel Bellinger. I call him the belly of the beast, man, because this guy can play. Theo Johnson was put on IR, and the belly of the beast should be the primary pass catching option at tight end moving forward. I've just been a fan of his game for a minute now, right? He's completely unknown, but man, I'm telling you, when you watch this guy play, he can play. This is a player that has an insane 88% catch rate across 66 career targets. This guy can play. Sticky hands, good route runner, good recognition of zone defenses, finding soft spots in the zone and getting himself open. It's not a bad matchup as well. The Saints have given up the 7th most receptions per game to the tight end position. Daniel Bellinger is my super secret deep sleeper play of the week. I think he gets it done this week against New Orleans. Again, a deep sleeper, so don't get it twisted. If you run Daniel Bellinger out there and he gives you 3 points, don't get mad. But if he gets you 15, find your boy. Daniel, the belly of the beast, Bellinger. Let's go. Taking on New Orleans. Anyways, there you go. That's the show. I'm running a little bit long, but that's okay. We got to get out of here. Tomorrow, of course, we're going to be talking more sleepers. We'll probably dive in a little bit more into injuries, as well as the initial injury reports will be coming down the wire. But until then, remember, it's never too late to chase your dreams. Peace.